What's up, guys? Today I'm bringing you back another Q&A, but before we get started, I want to announce two things. The first being what you see in the background. I got myself the new Hydra Rack by Bells of Steel. Link in the description box. This beast right here is real 3x3 tubing, 11 gauge heavy duty steel, and has laser engraved numbering, which not only looks freaking awesome, but makes your life that much more convenient. And you also have micro adjustment holes so you can get the perfect position every single time. Also, the customization is only limited to your imagination. You can quite literally make this your dream rack. Everything from the length, width, depth, to the attachments themselves. Not only within what you get from Bells of Steel, but even interchanging with other companies because it's got the specs. So truly, this will last a lifetime. The quality's there. Insanely stable. You're not gonna have any problems with shaking or the rack constantly shifting locations, so no need to bolt it down. And best of all, you can upgrade as you go. Not to mention the new attachments that will constantly come out. So overall, the Hydra Rack is equipped with everything that you'd ever need, and I can't wait to abuse it. So that's it. This is what you'll be seeing in my workout videos from now on. It's also going to add an extra professional element because it really does look good when I'm filming. And I'm just so happy to display this as the main feature of this home gym. So look out for a home gym 2.0 video. I'd say I'm pretty much where I want to be right now. Everything is complete. And in general, you're going to see a lot more angles and professionalism. So that's it. I just had to mention this, And for those who are interested in my OG rack, feel free to message me either through email, Instagram DMs, or in this comment section. We can go back and forth, talk about it, but I don't think it's gonna be around here for long, so act while you can. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, and I really need to hear your feedback, is what I'm planning to do with Q&As and the questions I've been getting. So the way I'm currently filming these is very old school style, raw. You get to see a different side of Alex, where I'm just laying it on the line. Nothing is planned out. There's no bullet points minus the questions. I'm just going with the flow, right? Some people like it, especially those who've been around here for a long time. But as I'm starting to notice in the fitness community, things are changing. The demands aren't quite what they used to be in terms of answering questions like this. People like to see less questions for one, and when they are answered, having more editing going into it. Now, if I were to do these long Q&As with a tremendous amount of editing per question, that might be cool, but I still think it's not what you guys are looking for, because I can see a clear difference between 2022 going into 2023 versus 2017 to 2019. This is not the same world. And so what I would personally like to do is make dedicated videos to your exact questions, such that your comment, yours, would be proudly displayed at the start of the video. So I briefly read it out loud or paraphrase it, and then I go into answering the question. And ideally, if you can sum it out without making like a paragraph this big, that would be great. So a couple sentences tops, we can really dive into the nuances instead of having blitz format. And you give me the time to think and film dedicated segments towards that. And at the same time, it would allow you to keep asking me more questions that's not just restricted to that little comment section of the Q&As. Not saying I don't get questions in other spots, but I would like it so that when I open up my comment section, I just see a random freaking question, I take it in, and I turn it into a video. Not only in long form content, but also shorts. And I think that's the main thing that would be attractive, because I can get straight to the point, but it will be high quality, summed up, all the footage, fully edited. It would just be so badass. Similar to what Justin Lee does. So there is some inspiration there, not gonna lie. But I've been doing Q&As for a long time. I'm approaching 300K subs. Name change is right around the corner. And I wanna bring you the best content possible. I don't wanna sprinkle in super high quality stuff with a bit of low. Like, I want all my shit to be super on point. I want every video to be a true banger, such that you actually have higher expectations, putting pressure on me, forcing me to level up my game even more. I think that would be great in terms of the channel evolution, which has already been happening. But this is something that I feel would be the next step. answering your questions, mostly in a short format, but also if the question is really good, I can answer it directly in a longer kind of segment. Let me know how you feel about that. Let me know if there's other alternatives. I'm very interested in what you have to say, and know that these Q&As are for your own benefit. So I want you to maximize your learning experience. So don't tell me what you think you want. Tell me exactly what you want. So that's it, guys. New Power Rack, new content on the way. I'm so freaking excited for what's to come in the next coming months and years. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get to this Q&A. First question, I want to try out the Conjugate system. I planned out all my max effort lifts and volume days, but I'm still confused as to what movements I should be doing on my max effort days. Do I just add movement with carryover, example dips for the bench, or do I just do isolation work on the max effort days after the main movement? The max effort lift is only the introduction to your main workout, and you still have to do many more compound movements plus isolation work if you're trying to maximize your strength and size. So I would not just do a flat bench followed by tricep push downs right after and then leave the gym. Nor should you be thinking exclusively about carryover, because then we go back to minimalism and high specificity towards powerlifting. Now, this also depends on your goals, right? So if you're in a bench press specialization phase, then maybe doing something like a weighted dip right after might not be the #1 choice. Perhaps a dumbbell bench press or another variation of a barbell press would be better. In my case, you'll see me work up to a 405 bench press doing flat benching variations and overhead press. Those were the two presses I selected, though the OHB was less specific. Did that matter though? No, because for one, that was my legitimate weakness. So even if on the specificity scale, it wasn't that high, the fact is that's what I needed, right? So we can't just look at movements in isolation. We got to relate it back to the individual, right? And then the other thing is I wanted bigger shoulders with a stronger vertical press. So then going back to your example, let's say you do decide to hit dips as a secondary motion, but the carryover is low, yet it's growing your chest, shoulders, and triceps like crazy. Is that a bad idea? I would say no. Like, the whole point of Conjugate is to have all your performance elements covered. You're good at volume, intensity, a variety of different movements. Honestly, this isn't even a powerlifting system. This is an all-encompassing system. Any strength goal, maximum hypertrophy, and being well-rounded year-round. This is what it does. And that's why I've had so much success with it in basically becoming the jack of all trades. Which other natty do you know on this platform that has my diversification in terms of performance attributes with the muscle mass to go with it? There's very few. I may not be the biggest of all time or the absolute strongest on specific lifts, though the bench is my money lift. But what I do have is balance, and nobody could deny that. This is because of the Conjugate system. I've applied it for everything. So you got to figure out, what are you trying to get out of it? Because I certainly don't know. But going back to the question, ideally, an upper body workout should look like this. You hit a max effort variation, then you immediately do back offsets for that exact variation, or you strip off the accommodating resistance if there was some. So let's say you max out on a floor press with chains. You would then do maybe a 3x5 or 3 sets of 6 of 10 or 3 sets of 10 at 70% with the chains or without them, right? But again, that's only the introduction. You still got to do a secondary press, and the secondary press can either be whatever the fuck you want as it pertains to general strength or hypertrophy, or be specific in raising the first press, aka being labeled as a supplemental press. So for the floor press example, you might do a dumbbell floor press as your supplemental press. Does that make sense? And then for the isolation work, you're building the lift in reverse. So if you're seeking maximum carryover, then you'll probably want to do free weighted extensions since they have similar strength curves, right? Something like a JM press, dumbbell extension, barbell extension, done off a flat angle are probably going to be best. But let's say you did decide to do a tricep push down or an overhead extension or anything else that doesn't resemble a bench or at least has less carryover. Does that matter? It might not, Because if your triceps are becoming bigger and you're still being specific with the other stuff, then you're still going to get maximally strong. That's what I'm saying. It's not just about carryover for every single movement. Some could have it. Others could just be focused on building the muscle mass. You stay within the optimal hypertrophy training guidelines, being 10 to 20 sets a week. You max out. You then do extra sets so that you're in the proper range. And you hit isolation work for bodybuilding purposes or for specific joint angle carryover, though that's less relevant than you think. And for workouts, there's so many I've posted on my channel. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. Max effort bench, back off sets, supplemental press, vertical pull, horizontal pull, isolation for bis, isolation for tris, maybe rear delts if I want to. That's your workout. That's for max effort. And the volume day, you just scrap out the max effort training and you do different rep ranges and sets if you so desire with different movements. Hey Alex, I've been on my current program for almost 5 months, but I'm still progressing my key lifts and getting stronger overall. Where I thought I had plateaued in the past, I'd broken these, no longer plateaued. When I'm still making progress overload in some form on a program for so long, should I still change up my program? I am planning on doing this soon anyway. I've been training for 3 years solid. If you're making great gains after 3 years, and you've been on the same program for 5 months, why would you deviate away from this? The only logical explanation is that you are psychologically unmotivated. You can no longer train this way because it's driving you insane. The enjoyment's not there, the passion, the drive to push hard. If that's a negative factor for you, then sure, you can change the system to something that's similar but different enough that you're not really changing the results that much. But what I would say is, when something is really working like that, 5 months is a long time. It would be in your best interest to drop your ego and continue staying on course. Because what could possibly be better? Like, to what extent will your gains be significant? Many times, it's not by much. Maybe 5-10% more. So chasing optimal, seeking perfection at all times is not the solution. It's finding a program that works for you, which you clearly identified, and running it till the freaking end. Or at least very close to the end. Are you seeing signs of overreaching? Are there mini plateaus? Or is it just super smooth sailing? Like, how good are your gains? If it's really good, like, I guess it goes back to the whole novice discussion. You have guys who have been making linear progress on the most simplest of novice programs for over a year. They have somehow managed to milk the 5-pound weight jumps for longer than normal. And they will come in my comment section and say, hey Alex, I bench over 225. My progress is A1, but I'm thinking about doing conjugate. Should I do that? My answer is, why? Like, not saying you can't. Not saying the gains won't be absolutely fucking amazing, through the roof, godly. You're going to get maximally jack strong. Your life is about to change. It's going to be fun. I'm not saying that the conjugate system is the greatest. I mean, I am, but I'm not. I'm saying, like, what I want you to do is continue enjoying this very limited, I must emphasize the word limited, progression window. Because once that's gone, like, you're going to be scraping for fucking gains. So that's what I'm saying. Like, guys are so impatient to move on to the next thing. Always searching for the magical program, the magical exercise. Seek new knowledge, refine, learn, but apply when necessary. Evolve your training with time, not because of some whim. Be logical first. So that's my answer to you. In truth, you already know what you have to do. Hey Alex, after years of weighted pull-up specialization and bulking, I'm planning on entering a cut and train for the one-arm pull-up. The plan is to get it thanks to the fat loss, but I don't know if the strength will be there. Do you think this is a wise plan? I think it's the best and only plan. You've done the work. Now, it's just Russian roulette. However, there's more than one bullet in the chamber. Because you said you did weighted pull-up specialization for years. So I'm assuming you have a certain level of performance, which is probably even impressive at a bulk body weight, such that when you cut, that might be what instantaneously gets you that PR. This is exactly what happened to me the first time. I was bear mode, 2017. I couldn't do one-arm pull-ups. I cut down to around 165, and all of a sudden, I was able. And every single time, without exception, I increased my 1 rep max on the way to pull up, and then I cut back down to a leaner body weight. There's always a rep PR. Last year, you saw me do 6 one-arm pull-ups, despite not training for it. That was a +1 rep, and it was cleaner form, true full range of motion. Imagine if I would have peaked, been more specific. I reckon I could have gotten maybe 7 or 8 reps. So the solution was just getting stronger at the vertical pulls as a whole, which some guys are like, wow, that's really good progress, right? Like, good job. But what they're not seeing is that was at least a 3-year transformation, maybe even longer. Like, I've been specializing in pull-ups for so long now. Like, there's a reason why I only got to 4 plates last year. But that's precisely what was required in finally overcoming a one-arm pull-up plateau. I was always stuck at that 5, couldn't get past it. Well, I did when I raised my absolute strength. And that is probably what you're going to experience. So I have no idea what you can expect. Neither do you. It's hard to estimate unless you're very lean. And please be honest about your body fat percentage when you get to a lower body weight. You should be able to do one-arm pull-ups if you're like really strong, between 12 and 15% body fat. But in many people, you'll probably have to get even leaner. Like, I can say this, if you get shredded, or at least 10% body fat, how about that? If you get to 10% real, yet you can't do a one-arm pull-up, then it means you didn't build enough absolute strength. So, give your cut some time, 3 to 6 months, and you will see where you're at. And I hope you get it. Hey Alex, want to know if it's still possible to make hypertrophy gains if I'm only able to do a few reps below the optimal range for hypertrophy, 8 to 16 reps of an exercise such as a handstand push-up on a deficit or pull-ups. Thanks for the great content. Well, first of all, the optimal rep range for hypertrophy is 5 to 30. So if you can do 5 pull-ups, of which the last rep is complete muscular failure, you got a legendary stimulus. Your back is going to grow like crazy without having to add any additional load. Bodyweight pull-ups, in this case, are a 10 on 10 stimulus with low fatigue. So I would argue for heavier guys, weaker guys at calisthenics, this is literally the best opportunity for gains, which blows my mind that many are not taking advantage of this opportunity. We can extend that to basic movements as well. If you can only do like 15 dips, do you realize how lucky you are in terms of hypertrophy? I mean, sure, it indicates you're not that strong unless you're like really fat, but this is excellent. I wish sometimes that I wasn't as strong as I currently am, because if I want to get a really good stimulus from bodyweight pull-ups, I got to resort to all kinds of psychotic variations. Super wide grip pull-ups, controlled, pausing, high reps, well above 20. It can be rough, man, psychologically at least. So for you to have this low rep count, which is still going to grow you equally as well, 5 reps is excellent. Like, this is the way. You can do 5 handstand push-ups. Man, you don't even need to overhead press. You will build cannonball delts at home, straight up. Now, what if you're below that? Let's say 3 reps. It starts to become less feasible, but there is a way around this, which is by doing more sets. But you're going to have to equalize the volume to a certain extent. So something like 5 by 3 would get the job done. But it's also more taxing on your recovery. And you may not be able to do this long term unless you rotate variations. So that's my response. Don't worry about it. The window you mentioned is actually broader than that. Mr. Leonidas, have you ever dealt with shoulder pain from vertical presses? If so, how did you mitigate said pain? Maybe years ago, when I was still a novice lifter, not knowing how to press correctly or running extreme minimalist programs, but it's been years now where I don't really deal with these problems. And what I can say is that the #1 hack is using a closer grip, even if it makes you weaker. See, I figured out with time that I am not a person who can handle wide grip presses of any kind. Anatomically, it doesn't work for me. Now you can say every exercise is safe when load management is on point, and no movements are inherently dangerous, which I would 100% agree with. But that doesn't mean that overuse is equal or that some movements aren't riskier compared to others. Like, we can't say that the injury profiles are literally the same and that anthropometry doesn't matter. In my case, I have tried wide grip stuff for years and it's just not something that my shoulders can tolerate. So when I overhead press, it's going to be a close grip, either having a vertical form or even being inside. And personally, this feels better. So the narrower the press is, the healthier I seem to be. And this also forces a more natural tuck and allows you to get a full range of motion without making your shoulders feel all wonky. Because if you're doing the super wide grip to the side like that, you're not going to be able to necessarily go all the way down. Or if you do, you have to be very careful with your form. So that's about the only thing I can recommend for form. And then you'll obviously want to change up the variations. Don't just do a straight bar overhead press. Mix in dumbbells, mix in the Swiss bar, heck, even throw in accommodating resistance. And also train the antagonist musculature. This is not only good for your posture, such that you're actually doing a proper OHB, where you're back here, but it's also going to develop all those little muscles in the back as well. So yeah, very generic advice here, but sometimes you don't need a complicated answer. Hi Alex, today I've done the seated anterior delt press and I use good form, but the bench I used started to fall backwards. I didn't get injured or anything, though I was pretty darn close, but I'm afraid it will happen again and yet I have no idea what caused this incident. What do you think could have happened there? First of all, you can't be buying shit equipment. I'm just going to say it bluntly. I've made that mistake in the past. I used to have a really bad neck harness and it snapped off my head. That could have been the end of Alpha Destiny right then and there. Not only in terms of freaking paralyzing myself, but also dying potentially. Or just getting badly injured, which would have taken me out of the game in one of my most productive years, 2016. So when it comes to benches, like what's the weight capacity on this thing? It should not be tipping over from a mere overhead press. Like if you really want it, you should be able to hold 300-400 pounds and have that bench be perfectly stable, not budging whatsoever. That's the type of capacity that we're looking for, even if you're never going to lift those weights. So if this problem is persistent and you don't really have a choice in using this bench, maybe it's at a commercial gym or you just don't want to get anything else for now, then the only real solution is to weigh down your bench. So you're going to have to put some chains on the edge of it and have plates in front, such that if it moves, at least it won't flip over. Actually, the only time I've experienced this was when I started doing iliac lat pull downs after seeing the Optimal crew saying it was the best for lower lats. And so I experimented with it. And when I put on some decent load, because the direction of resistance is diagonal to the bench, it caused it to tip forward. So I had to weigh it down. But what this also showed me is that these influencers are super full of shit. What they're posting as workouts are not. It's all fake, or they're really fucking weak and don't even have an impressive back to begin with. Because if you load up at least 3 plates on that movement with a 1-to-1 ratio cable, which would be double the weight in a commercial gym, that bench is going to tip. So what I ended up doing was putting chains on the decline pad. So once I experienced that for myself, I was like, yo, these clickbaiting weak motherfuckers talking about how pull-ups are underrated, just do this. Yet me, a guy who's never done these newer movements, is outlifting them by twice as much on first attempt. And I actually have super impressive lower lats. Then you start looking into the biomechanics and you realize that what they're saying is not nuanced. They're giving you one perspective, which is extremely biased. They have an agenda, right? Rant aside, sorry about that, or maybe you enjoyed it. It's either the direction of resistance with a cable, which you talked about free weight, so it's not that, or it's your freaking bench. Most reps you should do on a good morning. I would say around 20, because when you do higher reps with good mornings, your performance drops rapidly. Like, you saw me do 225 for a set of 20. My second set, I think I might have only gone like 15, and it was hard to get to that point. The reps in reserve were closer to 0, whereas when I did the 20 on the first set, I had way more left in the tank. So it's one of those movements where your performance goes down. So you can actually extend the rep window when using higher reps specifically. So that's why 3 sets of 15 to 20 is very good. I wouldn't do 3 sets of 18 to 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be done, but it's better to widen out a bit. Similar to bodyweight pull-ups in that regard. When you go above 20 reps, it's harder to get even 20 on your second set. Same thing here. And then when we talk about lower reps, I find that singles aren't really the best, and triples are the lowest I would ever go. But even 5 reps isn't the best. You can turn it into a squat morning. 6 to 10 is your typical range, but I'm going to be straight up and say most of my training was in the 8 to 10 zone. So much smaller window in a moderate rep zone. Sometimes I'll do 3 sets of 8 to 12, but really, I got the best gains possible when my average rep count was around 10 with a good 2 to 3 reps in reserve, because this allowed me to repeat 10, 10, 10. It just worked out great for recovery, and with good mornings, you don't want form breakdown to occur in any kind of capacity. So it's actually funny because I heard one of these fitness influencers claim that good mornings are not a good glute exercise because your lower back will fail before your glutes. First of all, do they even know how to do the exercise? Because it's a hip hinge, and if you look at the squat hinge continuum, they are marked very similarly compared to Romanian deadlifts, which they seem to love. And coincidentally, they also do the bent knee version, which is more glute biased. Yeah, with good mornings, they only show the below parallel straight leg version, which is 100% to be expected. So when you actually do hit a respectable weight, which these people have never seen in their entire lives and probably never will, because they have closed off their mind to analytical thinking and experimentation. They're just regurgitating off each other. When you do your body weight or beyond, you're going to be more upright and you're going to be sitting back more. And you're probably going to use a lower bar placement as well. Though if you use the high bar, okay, your spinal erectors can technically experience a higher proximity to failure, but why does that fucking matter if you're not going to fail on the good morning to begin with? In other words, if your spinal erectors have 1 rep in reserve or 0, but your glutes have 2 or 3, you still got the hypertrophic stimulus. And I'm assuming you're going to do multiple sets of the good morning, right? You're not just going to do 1 set to failure. So if you do 3 sets of 10 with 2 to 3 reps in reserve, maybe twice a week, in what universe will your glutes not grow like weeds? To me, it is the only possible outcome, and you have seen it this year. You've seen how strong I got at good mornings. 2.5 plates for reps. And just by doing that exercise, my deadlifts went up exponentially. It helped my squat as well. How about you listen to guys who are in the trenches actually doing the movement? So generally, 3 sets of 8 to 12. That's your little hybrid zone. And then 15 to 20 if you want to be higher. You're not going to have any problems with that. And you should expect your glutes, hamstrings, and spinal erectors to get massive, in addition to yielding tremendous carryover to all the other hip hinges. Like, even your RDL is going to automatically climb by just doing good mornings. Like, you saw me go from 4 plates to 4.5 plates without doing the RDL. So what is it that did it? Considering that the primary mover is the glutes, is it just that my spinal erectors became so fucking strong that I managed to increase this RDL by a huge amount, of which it's a number that even these influencers can't even hit? It blows my mind on how guys can make such bold statements that are often incorrect. All right, last question of the week. Hi Alex, you told us about maxing out twice a week will have an impact on your recovery. I started maxing out twice a week on bench press and squat 4 weeks ago. I started seeing progress with my lift and I feel good. Will I find some issues with my recovery long term? Of course you're going to see progress. Everybody will. That's how I got my 405 bench. It was by far the most effective strength training system I ever ran. Like, rapid progress, PRs every single workout. It was absolutely insane. But the trade-off was the worst recovery of my life. Comparable to when I was shredded, even though I was in a massive caloric surplus. I got very fluffy that year. And I took multiple deloads. I think around 4 within a 6-month time frame. You're also doing squats. I was doing bench only. You, my friend, are not going to last that long. I'm just saying it bluntly. And take it from someone who's already done the work for you. I did it, okay? 1 month does not indicate anything for this style of programming. But after about 2 or 3, that's when your body's really gonna start talking to you. And it could even be sooner than that. It could be that by the time I answer this question, you've already started to experience some of the side effects. That said, I know you're not gonna stop because you love what you're experiencing, right? You can't stop. I get it. There's a reason why I did this. So assuming your lifestyle is perfect, you're willing to sacrifice a lot to achieve whatever goal you set out to do, then know that you're going to require more deloads. And for this style of programming, every 3 to 4 weeks is advised, straight up. And it's best that you only reserve it for one part of your body. So don't max out 4 times a week. You're gonna fuck yourself doing that because there's so much fatigue that's being built up. Remember, the body is a unit and there's overlap between the muscles. So when you max out on Monday on that bench press and then Tuesday you do a max effort squat, you're still feeling some of that even though the squat has nothing to do with your chest muscles. The nervous system is where I'm getting at here. And the psychological effects as well. So I'm gonna tell you is, you pick one. What's more important to you? And it can also be a specialization technique in the sense that you're not trained this way year round, but you might throw it in every couple months for a short duration just to boost your performance. So I actually did do this a few times this year on the squat, but it wouldn't last longer than about 3 weeks. So I would max out on the Tuesday and Friday, different variations of course, and everything was fine. But after that, I would just go back to once a week, maxing out on the squats. And keep in mind, there was a trade-off. I did have to do some deloads, which could have been avoided if I didn't even do that. So imagine, I wasn't even training this way the whole year, just a little bit, and I already felt the effects on recovery. Now, could it also be because I'm stronger? The absolute load plays a role? Yeah, but still, we're not super different from each other in terms of what's tolerable percentage-wise. The fact is, if you're going to 90, 100% twice a week, and the system is working for you, you won't be as recovered as a guy who's only doing it once a week. In fact, some would even tell you that maxing out even once a week for your upper and lower body is draining. Personally, I think that's completely invalid if using the conjugate system. But on any other program, yeah, that would be a problem. So basically, the only reason why you can get away with this is because you're rotating variations. But that's another thing, right? You need all kinds of variations. You need high exercise selection. But if you don't even have that aspect down, let's say you're working with limited exercises, right? Similar strength curves, angles, etc. Then this is only going to speed up the bad recovery. Like you might not even last the duration that you think you're going to last for. In my case, I had the Swiss bar, flat, floor, 30 chain, 60 chain, 90 chain, board press, slingshot bench, occasionally bands, you name it. I did it all. And even within those, like, I discovered that you can't use the upper overloads twice a week. So if you do a flat bench with 90 chain on Monday, then Thursday, you can't do even 60 chain. The max would have to be 30, but preferably raw on something that's not even a flat bench. So a floor press. Like, you got to complement your program that much more when you do this style of programming. So what I would say is, unless you've been doing this for a long time, which 1 month is not enough, you probably don't know what it takes to get through this. So perhaps, and this is not me trying to pitch you or anything, but maybe I should release a program for those who are really freaking stubborn about this. A twice a week bench program, double max effort for those who have perfect lifestyles and have all the equipment, of course, because there would be no compromise. It would be, you need to have everything that you basically see in this gym. You would need all the specialty bars, all the accommodating resistance. Like, there would be no deviations for the most part. Like, this is the only way to run the system and that's it. I'm not a fan of black and white thinking. And although there could be some variation, some nuance with this, what's going to make you successful with double max effort is being hella precise. Like, your shit's got to be so on point, and even then, your recovery's still not going to be optimal in the long run. So that's my disclaimer. It's either made you more interested because the gains are amazing, or you're a bit turned off. Regardless of which path you choose, I hope my answer was helpful. So with that said, guys, this was a great Q&A. Let's see some more questions down below, and I'll see you in the next video.